What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today for a video. I haven't been recording for a while because I've been watching playoffs the last week, but I thought might as well get back on and do a video today. So today's video is going to be on my 10 least favorite, well, technically 11 because I got an honorable mention, 10 least favorite playoff games. The games that, as a Blackhawks fan, broke my heart. And I'm wearing a Vegas jersey, and if you can tell, I've not worn this one in a video before because I literally just received it in the mail earlier today. So as you can see, we got the gold Vegas jersey. You're probably thinking you got Marchessault on the gray, Fleury on the white. Who's on the gold? There you go. William Karlsson was the cheapest one I could find in an Adidas. I got this up for a pretty sweet deal from the NHL shop, and it was like 45 or 65% off or something. It was pretty crazy. And yeah, so I got this Karlsson jersey, and it's not the only jersey I'll be getting, so stay tuned for those that come. So what I'm going to go through here is we got the rounded game, the score of the game, the date that it happened, the team they played, and why it hurt me as a fan. This is strictly a Blackhawks list. I am a Blackhawks and Vegas fan, but Blackhawks are where my loyalties lie. If it's between the Hawks and Vegas, I would like the Hawks to win. However, 2020 was an exception, which we'll get to, but there are a couple games from 2020 on this list. So, we'll start with, I got a bunch of games down here listed. I'm going to choose this on the fly while I look at them. And for the first one, I'll say, let's see. So, for the honorable mention, I could go with that one. Realize how you don't know what that one is. I'll go with, alright. It was in round 1, game 4. The score was 3-2 in overtime. The date was April 19th. That's a little too high. April 19th, 2012 versus Phoenix. And the reason why? Because they were supposed to be up in the series against Phoenix, and then they were down 3-1. We're down 2-1, now 3-1. So, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how curved that was, but you know what, whatever. But, yeah, so, Game 4 against Phoenix, I thought about putting Game 3, but I wasn't heartbroken there yet. When Game 4 happened against Phoenix, the thing about that series was, it's the series I've uploaded on the channel, the review of it. When Phoenix was a higher seed than Chicago, but no one had expected them to beat them. Phoenix was number 3 seed purely because of the division they were in. They should not have been in that division, or they should not have won that division if it was any other division. And when they came against Chicago, everyone thinks Chicago's going to beat them. And then the first 5 of the 6 games went to overtime, where it went Phoenix, Chicago, Phoenix, Phoenix, Chicago, and then Phoenix won 4-0 in Chicago in Game 6. So Chicago did not win a game at home in that series, thus proving home ice advantage once again doesn't matter. I have that argument with my father every single day, and it is brutal. But yeah. So moving on to number 10. Number 10, I'll erase that one from the bottom here so I don't accidentally redo it. Alright. Number 10, it was in round 2, game 1. The score was 5-1. The date was May 1st, 2010. It was against Vancouver. And the reason why? Because they got flattened. Now, why does this one hurt more than going down 3-1 in a series? Because Chicago had beaten Vancouver in 2009. And they beat them in 6 games when they probably shouldn't have. They were down in that series. They were outplayed much of the first 4 games. And then games 5 and 6, they really turned it on. But in this series, it was basically Chicago v. Vancouver, the rematch. And Chicago came out in game one, and they were awful. They were down 5-0 going into the third period. They got 1 on a 5-on-3 power play, and that was all they'd get. Of course, they'd come back in game two, and they were down 2-0. They'd win 4-2, save my childhood memory of 2010 Cup. But, yeah, that was a devastating loss for me as a child because they lost game one against Nashville, and they came back and won that series. They also lost game three, but they didn't really feel like they were out because Nashville was a 7th seed. Meanwhile, Vancouver was right behind Chicago. I mean, not points-wise. They were a good few points off, but were seeds 2 and 3, and especially since they played them last year. In the previous year, I should say. Let me get this. What is this on my board? I don't know why that's here. Let me erase that one. Next one on the board. Let's see. Number 9. We'll go with some difficult choices. Because I know what the top 2 are, and then after that it's just a crapshoot. Alright, well, we'll go with this one. Yeah. So it was in round 3. It was game 5. The score was 5-4 in overtime. It was played on May 30th, 2015, against Anaheim. I'm doing this all confusingly now, but whatever. And the reason why is because they forced overtime, and Tays scored 2 goals in the last minute when they were down 4-2 to tie the game. And so I'm just going to say comeback fell short. And they scored 2 goals late in the third period. Tays gets them both. One of them from a weirdest angle I've ever seen. And they go into overtime. You think this is it. They're going to win because of this comeback. And about 11 seconds into overtime, Matt Bolesky and Ryan Kessler come down the ice, and Bolesky taps it right in past Crawford. And against Anaheim, I did not think the Hawks were going to beat Anaheim when they came across them. When they beat Anaheim when Game 7 was like the biggest sigh of relief when they flattened them, because I did not see it coming. And this entire series is so back and forth, and I thought this was the time to get the Hawks to get an edge over them, and they didn't. And I really thought they weren't going to make it to win it in 7, but they ended up doing it. They ended up pulling out in the end, but definitely one that really made me think, okay, we're not going to go back to the final. Now, I'll erase that one. Moving on to number 8. Let's go. I think I got it. Number 8 was round 3, game 2. The score was 3-2 in overtime. The date was May 19th, 2009, against Detroit. Not the only time Detroit shows up on this board. Not the only time Vancouver shows up on this board either. Detroit. Oh, there it is. And the reason why is because Chance Blown. The Hawks in 2009 were a young team. They were a team that got past Calgary, like I think a lot expected to. They got past Vancouver, which I don't think a lot of people expected. And then they came across Detroit. Detroit, at this point, powerhouse. Defending Stanley Cup champion. They would go on to lose in the final in 7 to Pittsburgh, but they're still at the top of their game. Chicago, at this point, you can argue, has overachieved a bit, and this game was their chance. They lost 5-2 in Game 1, and in Game 2, they go to overtime, and Hoppy Bullen gets hurt as well, and Havlat, of course, would get hurt in Game 3, or I think Game 4. But Yeah, when Detroit scored in overtime, believe it was Samuelson. He came down. It was a 3-on-1. I remember I don't remember if it was if they left Barker or Walker out to dry. I don't remember who, but Barker, that's a name. But yeah, he comes back down the ice. Javi Bulin couldn't make the save, and Detroit's up 2-0, and most likely this run is going to come to an end, which it wouldn't yet. The Hawks would win Game 3, but we'll get to what happens later. So let me erase that one off the board. Next one, I think I know what it is. So, next one is going to be round 1, Game 2. The final score was 4-3 in overtime. A lot of overtime games on this list. Those are the worst. And the Hawks don't win a lot of them. We've already gone over a what-if series if they did. The date was August 13th, 2020. So you know what kind of playoffs this is. It was against yours truly, Vegas Golden Knights. And the reason why is it put them out of the series. So, in the 2020 bubble playoffs, the Hawks had zero expectation. They were the 23rd team in the league that year, and they made the playoffs because of the expanded playoffs. They beat Edmonton and stunned everyone in 4 in the qualifying round, and then they go up against Vegas, and many people picked Vegas to sweep Chicago. I remember that. This is like around the time of this channel close to being in existence. I remember this very well. And I remember a lot of were saying Vegas in 4, Vegas in at most 5, and that's of course what would happen. But Game 2, the Hawks came really close to tying the series. Vegas won Game 1 4-1, I remember, and then Game 2, Hawks were able to send the game to overtime, and then Riley Smith came knocking on the door, and yeah, I always wanted a series between Chicago and Vegas. However, I wanted it in the third round when they would have to face. First round, it sucks because one of your teams goes home early, and that lowers your chances of winning a Stanley Cup in your household. But so yeah, Vegas did break my heart too. So my second favorite team did break my first favorite team's heart, that sort of thing. But yeah, Vegas, if the series is 1-1, who knows how the series goes, and if it goes to if it plays out normally, Game 3, Vegas wins, Game 4, Chicago wins, it's a 2-2 series, you don't know what's going to happen. Other than they most likely get flattened by Colorado in round 2. But, we'll get to there when we get to there. So, moving on. Let me erase that one first. Accidentally erased one of the other ones. Let me rewrite that so I remember it. Okay. We got 6 more to do. 6 more on the board. And I think we're going to go with... Yeah. So it's round 1 once again. Game 5. And if you're a Hawks fan, you know this could be one of 2 games, basically. The score was 4-3. The date was August. So you know what year it is. 18th, 2020. Which means the Vegas Golden Knights once again show up on the board. It's the final time. And the reason why, couldn't keep a lead. Chicago wins Game 4. So they lose Game 2 in overtime. They lose Game 3. They had already lost Game 1. Game 4, the Hawks win 3-1. In Game 5, the Hawks go up 1-0, 2-0. Vegas ties it at 2-2. Then they go up 3-2. And then they can't hold the lead. They lose the lead, and Alex Tuck gets the game winner in regulation, not even in overtime. And Vegas ends up winning the series. And I would have loved for the series to go longer, seeing my 2 favorite teams battle it out. Of course, Vegas was heavily favored over the 8th seeded Chicago, now with the reseeded playoffs. But it would have still been something if the Hawks won Game 2 and Game 5, because all of a sudden you're up 3-2 against Vegas, which no guarantee you win the series, but guarantee you get smoked by Colorado in the next round. If they win the series, Colorado probably wins the Cup in 2020 over Tampa, I'd say. So we'll take that one now off the board. And now we've got 5 left. My top 5 broken-hearted moments in hockey. Yeah, this one's not very hard. So it's a round 1, Game 5 once again. Final score was 2-1 in overtime. It was on May 27th, 2009, against Detroit. You know what series this is, and the reason why: elimination. Being the young lad I was in 2009, that was almost 15 years ago for me. I did not understand what losing meant because I had not seen it yet. When I was younger, the Hawks were winning, and this was my first experience really with losing. I mean, they weren't winning because this was the first season I watched hockey. But they beat Calgary, they beat Vancouver, and they lose in 5 to Detroit. And Game 5, I remember the goal. Holmstrom poked it out, and then Helm was right there. Huey did not know where the puck was. He puts it in, and I could still hear the call, and it's like, Helm and the Red Wings are going to the final. Back on Versus, that was the provider of the NHL back then. But yeah, it was tough. But then the Hawks would rebound next year; they'd win the cup. So it was a great learning experience for the Hawks. So that's what mattered more, and probably lowered it on my list. So I'll erase that one, and now we have 4 that really can battle it up. But I think I know which one I'm going to go with here. So this was round 1, Game 7. The score was 3-2. The date was April. It's first April date on here, shows how long the Hawks... Actually, second April day. I forgot about this one. But April 25th, 2016, against St. Louis. And the reason why? 3-1 comeback. Fell short. So, the 2016 series versus St. Louis was different, but also similar to 2014. In 2014, St. Louis jumped out to 2-0 against the Hawks, and the Hawks win 4 straight, including 2 of those in overtime. St. Louis also won both their Game 1 and 2 in overtime. In this series, Game 1, St. Louis wins in overtime. Game 2, the Hawks win. Game 3 and 4 in Chicago, St. Louis wins. In Game 5, Chicago, Patrick Kane, I remember that goal, wrap around against Elliott, and he forces a Game 6 in which Chicago dominates. Game 7, Hawks, I don't remember if they scored the first goal or if they were down 1-0. I think they were down 2-0. They tied the game, and then Troy Brouwer, the former Hawk, with like 6-7 minutes to go in the third, got the winner, and that was, I'd say, the first of the modern era. Whereas, and I fully can remember and register exactly what happened, because 2016, I'm 12 years old, and so I'm an actual human being. I can know exactly what's going on, that sort of thing. My voice, for whatever reason, is giving out. Hopefully it doesn't. But that was a tough loss, because if the Hawks win that, I believe they go to the final. I believe they beat Dallas. I believe they beat San Jose. And I believe they lose to Pittsburgh in the final, and Phil Kessel would win the Conn Smythe in an alternate universe. Because there was no way. I don't think the Hawks could have beat Pittsburgh. It's just, I don't think it was ever in the cards for them to beat Pittsburgh, except at Soldier Field. But that's enough of that. So we'll erase that one from the board. Next one is also round 1. Round 1, Game 3, Final score was 3-2 in overtime. The date was April 26th, 2017. It was versus Nashville. And the reason why, it was over and blown lead. The 2017 series against Nashville was different. The Hawks had never really had their, I was going to say the S word, but crap destroyed. In this series, they got their crap destroyed. Game 1, they lose 1-0 at home. Okay, that's fine. Game 2, they lose 5-0 at home, and they don't register even a goal at home in the series. They come to Nashville, and this is a 1v8. This is Nashville wildcard 2 and Chicago number 1 in the West. And Hawks start off with a 2-0 lead. Rasmussen scores, Kane scores, and they're up 2-0 and going into the third. Philip Forsberg scores twice to make it to overtime, and then Kevin Fiala gets the winner. Goes around Crawford, 3-2 in overtime, and Nashville's up 3-0. Maybe wondering why Game 4 wasn't on there, because I was already destroyed after Game 3, and Game 4 didn't have any meaning because I knew it was over. I still watched Game 4, I remember, because I was in Nashville at the time. That was not a fun time. It was a road trip, and guess where we were for Game 4? That was tough. Knowing that was tougher than Game 7 of round 2016 because the Hawks at least put up a fight. They scored 3 goals that entire series, and Game 3 just kind of, it was over. It was over by Game 3. You didn't need a Game 4. You knew it was done. Now we have 2 more, and any Hawks fan, I feel like, would know that these 2 are the biggest for someone that's my age. So, for number 2, it was round 1, Game 7. Score was 2-1 in overtime on April 26th, 2011. Same date as this one, actually. Any other same dates? No. So, versus Vancouver, 3-0 series lead, comeback, lost. So, 2011, the Hawks fall back because they lose half their roster. Literally 11 players from that Stanley Cup championship team in 2010 were gone, including Bufflin, Ladd, Sopel, Burish, Eager, Versteeg, actually no, not Bolin, but you get the idea. Almost everyone. The only guys you have are basically the core 7 plus Bolin and Brouwer and Kopetsky, who Brouwer and Kopetsky would be gone the next season. That game, in Game 7, Vancouver wins Games 1, 2, and 3. The Hawks destroy Vancouver in Games 4 and 5. They win 7-2 at home and then 5-0 in Vancouver. They win Game 6 after coming back in that game to win 4-3 in overtime. Michael Frolik with the penalty shot, Ben Smith with the OT winner. In Game 7, Vancouver scores very early in the first period to make it 1-0. No one scores the rest of the game until with about a minute and a half left. The Hawks are shorthanded, and Jonathan Toews scores shorthanded from his knees to tie the game. In that overtime, Sharp gets robbed by Luongo on the power play. Burrows, I still never forgave Chris Campoli for just giving it right to Burrows, who just comes in, slap shot, top corner. As a 7-year-old, not even, how old was I? As a 6-year-old kid, destroyed me. It actually destroyed me because I didn't think the Hawks could actually lose because I'd seen them win. I'd seen them win it all at that point. And if they had won that 3-game-to-none series comeback, I'm pretty sure I would have appreciated it much more than I would have at that age, but when Burrows scored that goal, I lost it. I remember bawling as a child. And Vancouver fans all they talk about us slaying a dragon, and we kicked your behinds over and over again. But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. They won that round. They lose in the final anyway, just like the Hawks would have if they won that. Check the overtime. Check the what if overtime series out. Number one, I'm pretty sure every single person knows at this point what this game was. Round 3, silly me. Round 3, Game 7. Game was 5-4 in overtime. The date was June 1st, 2014, versus LA Kings. Why? It looks like lost cap, but it says lost cup. 2014, the Hawks were going for back-to-back after winning in 2013. They were down 3-1 in that series to LA. Who they beat? They beat St. Louis that year. They beat Minnesota that year. And against LA, they win Game 1 decidedly. They lose Games 2, 3, and 4. Game 2, I'll never forget that one. They were up 2-0, and then it wasn't devastating because it was only Game 2, and I knew the Hawks had beaten LA before, but Game 2, they were up 2-0. Seabrook gets absolutely robbed by Quick, and then the Kings score 6 straight goals. Crawford was awful in that series. Game 3, Game 4, LA wins, no issue. Game 5, it takes double overtime, but the Hawks win that game. I'm not sure. I think it was 5-4. Maybe it might have been 4-3 in overtime, but I don't remember. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. Game 6, Hawks win in LA, big win. In Game 7, they could not keep a damn lead. I remember this because I wanted to just kill everyone on that team at that point. They were up 1-0, 2-0, 3-2 because LA tied it. And then they tied it, and then Patrick Sharp scores 11 seconds later, or 9 seconds later, whatever it is. Makes it 3-2. LA ties it. Sharp scores again to make it 4-3. LA ties it again. In overtime, Alec Martinez shoots. It goes off Letty's back or shoulder or something, gets past Crawford. And they lost the cup. Of course, that was the Western Conference Final. It was only the third round, but everyone knew at that time, whether Chicago or LA won that series, the one of them was going to win the Stanley Cup. At that time, that was all everyone knew, because the West was a lot better than the East back then. And although the LA puts the Rangers out in 5, 3 of those games go to overtime, but Hawks would have repeated. They would have. Of course, 2014 may have been like motivation for 2015, but theoretically they would have three-peated. And that's what broke my heart even more, thinking back now and realizing that's what it could have been back then, just 3 straight years, 4 and 6. It would have been something. But I've been very blessed with 3 Stanley Cups, 5 conference finals appearances since my birth. But yeah, those are my 10/11 least favorite playoff games in my lifetime. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next video, whenever that comes out at this point, because playoffs are still in full swing. Goodbye.